I'm yours. Let me tell you something about being man's best friend. Being man's best friend can mean a lot of things: companionship, belly rubs, tennis balls. But it can also mean a dark, endless highway and an open truck window. It can mean the smell of the wet wind as hands grab the box that you're in with your brothers and your sisters, and you go sailing out into the unkind night. And still, crazy as it sounds, you're thinking, but I'm yours! I'm yours! I'm yours! No one. That's what being man's best friend can get you: a black highway, an empty box, and no one in the world but you. Early days. I don't remember much about my early puppy days. It was 3 years ago, but sometimes it feels like 300. Mostly I recall fighting with my sibs for the primo meal spot. Lots of squirming, lots of squeaking. Everything was soft and milk smelling and movable, like we were the one great big complicated animal. I never met my dad, and my mom, she didn't say much about him, except that he was trouble. Mom had a beautiful fawn coat, Chihuahua. Some this, some that. Nice, messy bloodline. Mutts rule. Mom crooned it to us, told us stories, laid down the law. I wonder if she knew she didn't have much time with us to prepare us for the world. We were born in a dark place, probably under some porch stairs, I suspect, since I remember the sound of boots plodding up and down and biting the ugly smell of human feet. Ugh. They call my mom Rio, and they fed her most days, though sometimes she had to fend for herself. She never showed fear towards them or respect. She just showed indifference, I guess you'd say. Unless they tried to handle one of us, she growled then, hoping to make it clear that we were hers and hers alone. I myself got picked up a couple of times. The hands reached in, grabbed. They were rough, and they smelled of strange scents, bitter and meaty. My mom's growl made me fearless. I wriggled and yipped. The hands shoved me back into the warm place where I could sleep and drink and dream in safety. Still, I understood in my small, simple puppy way that dogs belong to humans, and that was how it would always be. Boss. My mom wasn't much for names. She'd had lots of them, litters. I guess she'd run out of ideas. My brother was first. Natch was firstborn. Runt was my youngest bro. Was last. Dot was a little spot on her back. Yip was always complaining, and I was rowdy. Goes without saying, and left my oldest sister, who we called Boss. Boss was small but mean. With a distinctive sharp-sounding bark, she could outmaneuver any of us for the best feeding spot for dining. I admired her grit, even if she did get on my nerves. When we did get a bit older, less blind, more cocky, I fought her off occasionally, but mostly Boss won. She was fearless, that pup. That truck happened without warning one single night. They threw us in a box, left my mom behind. I can still hear her frantic howls. I landed in a muddy ditch. It was a cloudy night, nearly freezing. Even the moon had abandoned me. And the smells! Everything so wild and unknown. Animals with big jaws, bigger appetites, birds swooped in to kill. Death and life were all mixed up together. I searched for my siblings until the truth became clear. I was utterly alone. Cars. The next morning I began a slow journey of moving through the tall, wet grass, my limbs stiff from the cold. And now and then I'd drink from a mud puddle or gnaw on some grass. By evening I was wobbly with hunger and thirst. I followed the highway. Every time a four-wheeled creature roared by me, I froze in fear. And yet, that is what slays me. I knew that cars meant humans. And humans meant the possibility of living, just as much as they meant the possibility of dying. The owl. Darkness had fallen when it came out of nowhere. The owl. A shadow. It was a shadow and a shadow. They don't make a sound, not a single sound. It's quite impressive when you think about it. Luck. Just as her talons, those marvelous weapons, raked my fur, I caught my right foot on the small hole and stumbled. If she'd have gotten a hold of my body, I wouldn't be here. But all she managed to do was grab my tail. Only time in my life I've regretted my handsome hindquarters. I was airborne, hanging upside down, dizzy and dazed, and just crazy enough to think, hey, I'm actually flying, before the terror hit full force. I caught whiff of the other animals below. Later I found out that there was a pocket of gophers, but back then I just knew I was smelling something completely foreign. The owl must have decided the gophers would make a much more satisfying meal, so she just let go of her grip, and I plummeted to the earth.